Welcome to the HU Move Makers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the HU Move Maker video podcast. I got to say that right. HU Move Maker video podcast, where we highlight individuals that are contributing and that have contributed to the legacy of Howard University at the highest levels. Today, I have a guest on here who is very interesting. I had a lot of fun doing research on you. So she's from the Chi, so off rip, I love her. I love that about her. Howard University, of course. But I'm gonna drop some names on you on here to see if y'all kind of know what I'm talking about. Chirac, Wu-Tang Clan, BLACKKKLANSMAN. She's Gotta Have It. Lost Girls. And so when I say that, I'm talking about Marci Rodgers, Howard graduate, award-nominated costume designer. So she kind of creates characters, is what she told me, and she makes people look good, or she makes people fit their role. So I want to welcome Marci to the show. Marci, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Man, thank you for being here. I know we had a little rough start, so thanks for being patient with me. But it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. You know, I've never met a costume designer, and I think your work is pretty cool because, you know, when you watching like the Grammys, or the Academy Awards, you always see like those people who are getting those awards, who they're like the people like that are behind the camera, and that's kind of like, you know, you like the unsung hero. So how did this love for fashion, if you want to call it that, or creating characters, how did that start?
Well, for me, it started when I attended Evanston Township. And I would say probably a little bit before that, I always had a passion for fashion. I remember back in the day when my mother would take me shopping, and I'm an 80s baby. So The Last Dance has hit home for me in so many ways.
Let's speak on The Last Dance.
And so, you know, I watch it every Sunday and I revisit my childhood in regards to, you know, going to Foot Locker or even Tony Sports for that matter on the north side and being the first to ever get a pair of Jordans.
The north side, people, we talking about the north side of Chicago.
Yeah, sorry, north side of Chicago.
Yeah.
And or even like getting the Pippins and just like putting a look together. So fast forward, I get to high school, and you know, that's the height of the TLC era. Crazy, sexy, cool.
If we can, I mean, can you coming into high school at what year?
I came into high school in 1996.
Okay, so you 1 year under me. So I'm class of 95, 8th grade, and then I graduated high school in 99. So we both came in that era where people was buying shoes and like kind of tricking the shoes out, painting on the shoes, designing them. So go ahead, tell me about the TLC.
So yeah, it was that whole movement for me, you know, and so when we were talking earlier about my passion for fashion, I remember reading the Word Up magazines. I remember reading Source. I remember reading Double XL, just to name a few. Don Diva. I remember seeing that magazine with Dapper Dan, who's a dear friend of mine, on the cover, and just seeing that there was a world out there. I knew Chicago had its own style of fashion, and we still do. But I was just trying to figure it out. So at that point, I became best dressed at Evanston Township. Shout out to Evanston Township High School. And I attended Chicago State.
Best dressed?
Yes.
How many kids we talking about at Evanston Township?
I was like a class of like 1,000.
How you get best dressed? What was you wearing back then?
Oh, back then? Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Like, was it best dressed because you was creative? Like, were you like the best
I think
dressed?
it was just my style.
Like, you know how like Sharon Stone wore that Gap shirt and everybody went crazy, like, oh man, it's a Gap shirt. You know, was your style like, I'm best dressed because it's a name brand, or was people like, man, the way she put that together, that's dope?
I think it was that. I'll never forget. I had these fire engine red Tommy Hilfiger overalls, and when I showed up to school, people went nuts. You know, and I had the Nietzsche leather jacket. Of course, all of this was trickling down from the East Coast. And then for it to come full circle, when I actually attended Howard University, as a transfer student, I remember literally standing on the yard and just like taking everything in. I'm sure you did too, particularly
What was
coming
that
from the
like though?
Midwest.
Because you know, on Howard, some people they come with it every day on a Tuesday at
Sure.
7 a.m. Like people having their best clothes on. What is it like when you know, we skipping over a little bit, but what is it like when you get to Howard? Because now you best dressed from Evanston.
Sure.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You go to
Right.
Chicago State, you know, not the biggest school. It's on the south side, but definitely not no
HBCU. Shout out
right
to it. It's HBCU.
HBCU. But it's
Hmm.
definitely not no fashion forward institution. You know what I'm saying?
No,
It's
not at all.
more of a transient school. A lot of
Hmm.
people that go there don't live. It's not like they got dorms there, but it ain't like what Howard is. Howard is attracting people from all over the globe, all different type of styles. When you first step foot on campus from a fashion perspective,
Hmm.
what's that energy like?
Man, I every time I go back to Howard, I feel the exact same feeling I felt when I stepped on campus in 2002. It's inspiring. Um, I remember up against the wall. I remember
Mm.
literally going up against the wall and just like walking inside the store and just taking it all in. I remember Parasuco. I remember Mesquite and just
Oh
like all of
yeah,
these.
Parasuco.
And I wore
Man,
Parasuco.
them slouch
Right.
socks. Remember them slouch socks and the rubber
Yes.
bands on the socks? Like that whole
Yes.
DC style was nuts. And
So
Timberland.
yes, all that. So you're like, it's like a melting pot of culture. So I'm bringing my culture from Chicago, and I'm looking at the New Yorkers, the East Coasters with the hats, the Philly boys with the hats, Jersey boys, the way they wore their hats. And I was taking it all in. And then I said, how do I fit into this world? Which I think is what you were asking me. And I really just remained myself throughout it all. And
So
that's
okay, go ahead.
so I guess to say your question about fashion, I always had it. Um, I was just trying to find it needed to find me, and I need to find it again because I actually attended Howard for business.
Oh, really? What? So you was in school to be what major?
My major was marketing.
Oh, me too. Same. So we definitely had to cross paths, I'm
So
sure.
you know Miss Wimberly, but may
Yeah.
she rest in peace.
I knew Mr. Gray. You know Mr. Gray?
Of course I know Miss Deckard.
Man, Mr. Gray was he's such a positive dude. Like he made you feel like you was destined to be successful. Like
Of
he
course.
just he walked
Remember
into a
your
room.
groceries? He told you
Yeah,
to get your groceries? Yeah.
yeah, man. Mr. Gray was just, rest in peace, Mr. Gray. But I remember hearing that news. That was so sad. But he really made me feel good about myself every time I talked to him. But yeah,
Hmm.
so you're at Howard, is this fashion thing, is at this point, is it a hobby, or is it like are you thinking in your head like I'm trying to make a career of this?
It's a distance dream because when I left Chicago and I actually attended Howard, my father said he wasn't paying for me to go to school for fashion, which is
Mhm.
why I majored in business. So I would,
What's wrong with black families? Why do we do that?
well, I honestly thank him. And I say that on record and I say it a lot because I think he knew something that I didn't, meaning you have to be taught business. You can't be taught the gift that God gives you. I already
Mhm.
had it inside of me, but now I can actually go, which we'll get to if in a minute, but when I'm doing budgets for my films, I can actually, I have a spreadsheet. I actually know, the bottom line, and I can explain and justify why I'm spending this amount of money on a costume. And actually know why and, put numbers to it so that the producers can say, she has a point there. And sometimes as an artist, you just want to live in the world of creating when the ideas that you create, hopefully, to bring in revenue. So
Mm.
when my father told me he couldn't or he was not going to allow me to go to school for fashion, I would take classes in fine arts. As you know, as a business major, we only had like 2 or 3 electives. And I knew off top that I was taking classes in fashion. So that's what I did
That's
when I was
smart.
at,
That's
yeah.
smart. I mean, a lot of times, families, when they put you through college, they want you to go to college, they want you to get a job. They're not necessarily trying to discourage, but at the same time, because I've had a few people who interviewed on here, um, and they talk about, how they like, man, I'm a major in theater arts, and their family like, whoa, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, you
Right.
gotta, we want you to get a job when you graduate, or, whatever, but they mean well, but sometimes they don't see the world through the same lens that you do. Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate.
Right.
So when you were at Howard, are you participating in any of these fashion shows that take place during homecoming?
I did not participate in the fashion show because I actually looked up and got a job as an usher at Crampton.
Yo, me
So
too.
yeah, so Mrs. Banks took me under her wing,
That's crazy.
and I was like, I could participate in the fashion show and be getting paid for it because I saw it for free.
Working at Crampton, that was like the best job I ever had. Like all the concerts I got to see.
Listen,
the
I remember
green
when Lil
room.
Scrappy came, I was like an usher at Howard.
So
Like
you came out of Howard in what year?
2005.
Okay, I came out in 2003. Okay. So
Yeah.
like I remember seeing Wu-Tang, Beanie Man, Lionel Richie, like all the homecoming acts. I mean, Crampton was like the best job ever. And because it was, it was like a 3-block walk. You wear your white shirt, your black slacks, and you good. You know what I'm saying? But
and we kind of already knew it because we had to wear it every Wednesday at the School of Business. So you had it in your closet.
Yeah, for sure. So that's dope. So you didn't. So at Howard, like I alluded to earlier, people dress up, and I think every park, like you said, Philly got this style, Chicago got this style, LA got this style, but the women at Howard really dress it up. Now at Howard, are you still considering yourself like, yo, I'm in terms of fashion, I'm killing them, or are you kind of like, damn, I wasn't expecting all of this? Because even in the School of B, it's kind of conservative in terms of attire because, we got those business classes and then they making us kind of dress like in a black or a dark color suit. Like what's your energy like at that time? Are you getting compliments for your fashion at that time?
I was real low key. I mean, I literally was still trying to take it all in and figure out my own style, and I think when I found my style, it was probably because remember I transferred. So I would say it was my senior year. But I would never let go of certain things just being from Chicago. Like I just was like, I'm not doing it. Like,
how would you describe the Chicago style at that time?
At Howard?
Because I'll say this.
I got to think about it. Go ahead.
I mean, Air Force Ones.
For sure. I was going to say
that. Air Force Ones off rip.
Right. During that time, it was the jerseys. It was the throwback jerseys.
Right. When Jay-Z came out with his album and started rapping about everybody had to wear a jersey. Like as a person that's in fashion, is that something you appreciate, or you be like, yo, y'all not original? Like what do you think when people are like kind of, I guess everybody's kind of dressing the same?
I think that's a cultural movement. We could, like with even Wu-Tang, people started wearing Carhartt. And I've said it in other interviews. Those, I'm honored to have designed their biopic on Hulu. But as I sat there and I thought about it, and I remember having a conversation with Method Man about like what he wore during that time. And I said, wait a minute. They wore these clothes to survive because it's cold in Staten Island. And Carhartt is for construction, for men who work outside, so that the air or the cold air doesn't obstruct, it doesn't affect them. And it became that and it was cheap. I mean, Carhartt's not like, your Louis Vuitton. So they had to figure out how to make things accessible, and that was stylish. And I think it just so happened to become stylish at the time. We can even go back to, I remember it was 2003, 2004? When Kanye came out with the Lacoste polos. Everybody wanted to wear Lacoste.
Everybody. Even people was even wearing like the double polo. Like having two polos on at one time.
I remember seeing that at Howard, and I'm like, wow. Like, so it's really a cultural movement and how you figure out how to contribute to it in some way. And I think a lot of stuff came out of Howard, if that makes sense.
Oh, really? You saying that Howard set a lot of trends for fashion?
I think even to this day, I think a lot of entertainers still come to Howard to see how Howard girls dress, how, you know what I mean, and how Howard men dress as they
Wow.
are men, I think.
Wow, that's dope. I was never a fashion cat. Like, as you know, I probably wore just a different Howard shirt every day that I was at campus. So I mean, when you're at Howard, you're you're in marketing now. Are you involved in any organizations or doing anything off campus beyond working at campus?
Yes, I was in the American Marketing Association. And I also was, I forget what it's called. Please forgive me. I was a part of Residence Life, but more so like, you remember back in the day, the dorms had their like own internal committee. It was like of things to kind of get to the, you like funnel it up to Residence Life. Not quite an RA. I was not an RA, but just like the politics of it all.
Like a judiciary board or something like that? Like if somebody got in trouble?
What was the gentleman's name who was over the towers back in 2002?
Ooh, I don't know.
Oh God, I see it's Larry. I forget his name. But anyways, I was a part of that, and I should have known this, but that was like something to put on the resume. I was a part of Circle K.
Okay.
And then I joined Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Alpha Chapter in 2005.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So so tell me about that. I mean, it seems like, no shade to Chicago State, it's a great university. When I was in the School of B, and because I didn't want to take accounting while I was at Howard, I took it at Chicago State because I just knew that I wanted to be stress free when I was at Howard. So when I was home, I just took accounting. So two different lifestyles, both HBCUs, both totally different. You get to Howard, and you being in fashion, AKA is, I mean, that's, all the sororities are known for a certain type of fashion. So I'm just wondering, what attracted you to be in an AKA?
I remember when I first got to Howard, I was actually in the School of Business, and I introduced myself to one of the members of the chapter, and she made an impression on me. And let's back up a bit. When I actually got there, the Deltas had probated, and I remember watching the Deltas probate.
Powerful.
And yeah, I mean, it's all powerful. Let's just, we joke about it, and it becomes a serious matter during homecoming, but it's all powerful. I think it's a sight to see, period.
Man, crazy.
So fast forward, when it was time for me to start to attend the programs at Howard, I remember, never forget it. My first program, I came to the program, I had on a shirt, like a sweatshirt, this color. I literally had on a sweatsuit. It matched. Oh, I thought I was the flyest thing in the room. And I had on some
It wasn't pink, was it? Or green?
No, it was, to them, it was probably, I mean, now looking back, it was probably worse than that. Like, I had on a sweatsuit with some fresh K-Swisses. Like, this was 2002. Like, K-Swiss was the thing. Don't ask me why. I probably wouldn't wear K-Swiss now. But, and I just remember one of my now big sisters, she came to me and she pulled me aside and she said, I don't know you, but I want you to take in the room. And I want you to take in the room, and I want you to see how my sorors are dressing, and I want you to see how these prospective members are dressing. And I'll never forgot that. Never. And because of that, it made me want to be better. It made me want to come show up the next time. Now, mind you, I'm in the School of Business because I have a suit. But I remember seeing how these girls, they made their business casual or their business attire chic. And that's what I wanted to do in my own way in 2002, 2003.
Wow. So
AK had a really big impression on me because at the time, one of the members was not judgmental. And I think that's really important for somebody who comes into the room that's vulnerable.
Yeah, because she could have totally turned you off, and you'd have been like, and you weren't not even intending to be disrespectful or to be,
I didn't know, because nobody's in my family is Greek. So for me, it was new. It was all new to me. And I could totally tell she knew it because she was very gentle in a way where it made me say, okay, well, this is what this organization stands for. And then at that point, of course, you hear rumors like, if you go to this program, you can't go to that program, and it's the whole thing. So that's pretty much what happened.
So I mean, were AKs at Chicago State?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's funny because right before I transferred to Howard, they had a line.
Wow. So was that a goal of yours even when you were at Chicago State? Was that to be an AKA?
No.
Oh, wow. So you just kind of went to go check them out at Howard, and then you got, you just started doing your own research, and then you decided to join.
Yeah, I remember when I was at Chicago State, I remember going to Tennessee State's homecoming, which is another experience. And I remember seeing the AKAs and the Deltas do their party walk in their gym. And it was like seriously a scene from School Days. I could have pinched myself because all the AKs were light skinned with long hair and all the Deltas were dark skinned, and I was just kind of like, what is going on? But this is cool. So fast forward, when I get to Howard, I saw so many shades of brown. It was like, wow, and then not just to mention AKs, Deltas, Zetas, Sigma Gamma Rhos, Alphas, Omegas. It was like a whole melting pot. So, and it was it just blew my mind. So that's what I think for me, transitioning from Chicago State to people who kind of have the same mentality of me, and then going to Howard, everybody came together, and
that's cool. That's cool. I mean, so, in that experience, I mean, do you, as you go through the process of becoming an AKA, what was it like when you finally crossed? Like, what was that feeling like to have that, to be the focal point of that type of energy when you finally crossed?
My line shut down the yard. Not even lying to you. And I'm not even bragging. Like, this will be my 15th year in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So we're past the point of bragging. When I tell you my line shut down the yard, my line, as everyone knows, because it's on record, my line is 137 privy. When I tell you, I just remember coming down the yard, particularly walking towards our tree, and looking up at people in trees watching us, because there was so many people on the yard. I'm getting chills as I say it. Like, that is a feeling that I could never take away. Like, I'll never forget that. Never. And it's funny because I just posted a photo, my number from the previous line. It was her birthday not too long ago. And I posted a photo of me, like, us probating. And I saw myself and I was like, wow, that was me 15 years ago. Scared to death, but I was so happy that I achieved something like that, especially Alpha Chapter.
So tell me the significance of Alpha Chapter with AK.
I mean, well,
because the reason I ask that is because I'm from Chicago, just like you. It's not like we from the South or these other havens where Greek life is just crazy from birth. In my household, I didn't have any Greeks. So of course I knew, okay, you might have known one person that was a Kappa, but it wasn't really something that was, you going to Howard, you got to be, it was just never like that. But once I graduated and then I started to come back, that's when I really realized, like, man, this is Howard. 5 different sororities and fraternities founded here. And then you start to realize the significance of what an Alpha Chapter means. I mean, did you realize that at the time, or is that something that came later? Because I'm sure you had to learn stuff while you online, but sometimes certain things don't hit you until later. Like, damn, like when you go meet other AKAs and they like, yeah, I'm from Alpha Gamma Zeta Beta Eta Chapter. You know what I'm saying? And you like, yeah, I'm from Howard. I'm from Alpha Chapter.
Right.
Like, everyone knows what that means, no matter where you cross that. Everyone knows what Alpha Chapter is. What, talk about the significance of that for you and what that means.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned having to grow, because I definitely had to mature in the idea of understanding that was something that was given to me. I wasn't, so I had to earn it, and I'm still earning it to this very day. And I say that because I remember back when I crossed, like you said, going to other campuses and saying, I'm Alpha Chapter. And a lot of times people weren't that receptive. They were just kind of like, okay, and because I wasn't totally mature in myself at that moment, to be quite honest, because I was still growing. I mean, it was in my early 20s. I saw it as a slight versus sticking my shoulders out and saying, I'm Alpha Chapter. You know what I mean? And truth be told, Alpha Chapter just so happened to be founded at Howard University, and then all these other chapters were founded after that. And if you go back to why our founders even founded Alpha Chapter, then it's about sisterhood. So, and service to all mankind. So figuring that out and living life, you realize, wow, this came from my school, a school that I hold dear to my heart.
Dope, man. That's crazy, man. I'm glad you was able to touch on that. So, do you consider yourself to be a creative? Is that
Yes.
a label? What was it like to be a creative? And not only are you in the most conservative school at Howard, but then now you're online and you kind of having to conform a lot. Was that a struggle for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now what? And after this, we're gonna hop into life after Howard.
Sure.
For young ladies that watch this and maybe they want to be AKA or Delta or Zeta or whatever. And they don't even know better. What advice do you give them? In terms of how they can join an organization or learn more about it. Like what type of things would you tell them to consider?
First and foremost, you definitely have to know the history, or at least know the bare minimum. I mean, because a lot of the members who represent these organizations, they hold it dear to their heart, and of course there's percentages of those who hold it extremely dear to their heart, and there's some that are normal about it. And I say that because when you get to Howard, you and I both know that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I think other than knowing your history, then you're going to be confident when you actually present the idea of saying this is publicly that you want to be a part of these organizations. So don't show some type of weakness. And I'm not saying that in a way where one is going to sift out weakness. What I'm saying is if you have a foundation of the history, then you present yourself and say, this is what I want to do, then you're going to have confidence. And also be okay with constructive criticism. And that's hard to tell a 20-something-year-old. Trust me, I know, I'll be the first to say it, and those who came before me will tell you that I did that. But as I grew older and I realized a lot of what I learned in my process as it relates to Alpha Kappa Alpha, even the School of Business, because we didn't even really touch on that part of the process of the School of Business, and even Howard as a whole.
Everything at Howard is a process.
Exactly.
And
right.
And to me, that's so dope because being Black, we don't have the luxury of having all these traditions that are passed down to us and all of these things. But at Howard, like in the School of Business, hey, my name is Josh Mercer. I'm an 18-year-old marketing major from Chicago, Illinois.
Exactly.
Blah blah blah. Like at the time, you didn't realize everybody that came before you was saying those exact things, like those exact same things. And then fast forward, now you in the real world, you got no problem introducing yourself, with that type of confidence. So yeah, you're exactly
I do it all the time now. I literally when I have I'll never forget, we were doing which I know we're gonna segue into this part in a minute. I was presenting my research for BLACKKKLANSMAN, and I was sitting next to, I call him Mr. Lee, Spike Lee. And I remember him saying, Marci, introduce yourself. And I just was like, hi, I'm Marci Rodgers. I'm the costume designer. And this is I'm going to present to you my research. He's done that to me several times in front of an audience. And I literally just spring into it. You know what I mean? And I'm glad because it cuts out all the shyness.
Let's talk about that. I mean, I think that a lot of listeners definitely want to hear about that. Tell me how that relationship with Spike Lee, or that opportunity to work on that, and we can go back and
Sure.
talk about other things too. But what gave you how did you get that opportunity to work with somebody like Spike Lee?
Just what you said. I walked up to Spike and I introduced myself.
Really?
Yes. So to put it in perspective, my mentor Reggie Ray, who was a costume designer and professor in fine arts, he unfortunately had fell ill, And so he had designed a project on Broadway, and he couldn't make it because he was actually at Howard Hospital. And I was finishing up my first year at University of Maryland in their program, in the costume design program.
And you're getting your master's at this point, right?
Yeah, I'm getting my second master's. And he says, do you want to go? And I'm a grad student, you know, with no money, so to speak. And I get on a train, zip up to New York, and I see the show. It's called Holler If You Can Hear Me. It was on Broadway, directed by Kenny Leon. And I was hearing whispering, like, you know, Spike is in the audience, Spike is in the audience. And I'm like, okay, that's nice. He's here to support Black theater. Fast forward, we got to it was after reception. And people were coming up to Mr. Lee and introducing themselves. And I thought to myself, let me do it. So I walked up to him and I said, hi, my name is Marci Rodgers. And I just watched School Days. And that was probably one of the corniest things I could have said, but whatever it was.
Wait, what did you say to him?
I said, hi, my name is Marci Rodgers, and I actually just watched School Days.
Wow.
And he was like, what? And then we kind of got to talking, and he asked me, he said, what are you doing here? I said, my mentor was the costume designer for this production. And fast forward through the conversation, I told him I was attending University of Maryland, getting my master's in costume design. And he asked me, did I know who Ruth Carter is? Everybody who's watching this will know Ruth Carter is the costume designer for Black Panther. And
okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that, but dope.
She's a Hampton alumni. She designed Black Panther. She designed
Shout out
School
to the
Days.
Institute. Shout out to the Institute.
She designed School Days. She designed Malcolm X. She designed Do the Right Thing. So much. I mean, she's a staple in our industry, let alone the Black community. So he said, I'm going to put you in contact with Ruth. So he puts me in contact with Ruth. I reach out to Ruth because remember,
What do you mean he put, like, y'all exchange numbers?
No, he gave me her email address, and he was like,
I'm like, damn, you a hell of a networker. You meet Spike on day one, you get his number, and he just push you in touch with her like that.
He did. He gave me her information, and he said, reach out to her. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to say? And he said, I told you what to say. That I told you to reach out to her. And that's literally how that relationship happened. So I kept in contact.
That's crazy.
I kept in contact with him as best I could when I was designing theater in DC in grad school. And one of my productions made it to the Washington Post. I actually dedicated it back to my mentor, Reggie Ray. And he got a hold of it. And I would say, this was my last year at Maryland. He reached out to my school and asked him, could I design She's Gotta Have It, season 1. And that's pretty much how it happened.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a few things to unpack here that I want to touch on. Number one, mentorship. So key when it comes to success, especially for people of color, you know, mentorship. And then I want to get back to, because people that's watching this, they need to understand, and even, you know, what is a mentor? If I had to say, you know, Marci, what's a mentor? Like, what is a mentor?
A mentor. Well, I had to figure this out because I would, you know, people use that word kind of wrong. A mentor in the beginning is somebody who you pretty much are vulnerable to as it relates to whatever you're trying to get out of the relationship. And I know that was kind of weird and philosophical, but for instance, for me, I was trying to be a costume designer. So Reggie took me under his wing, meaning at the time, Reggie didn't teach me costume design. He taught me the ropes. I was literally watching everything he did. I would be with him, and those who attended Howard when Reggie was there, they call it Reggie Fire because he will haze you too, and they say it, you know, pledge or whatever. But just kind of seeing how he interacts with actors, how he interacts with directors, how he interacts with production designers, how he interacts with the producers of these shows he's designing. That in itself is my mentor, because we could, like I said earlier in the conversation, we could be creative, but you got to know how to interact with people. You got to know how to collaborate with people. And even just being around his confidence. And I call him my mentor, and I'm very clear about when I say, right now I'm representing my mentors. I'm representing Reggie Ray. I'm representing Ruth Carter. I'm representing Spike Lee. I'm representing Helen Huang, who's the professor and director at University of Maryland, who took a chance on me because I didn't have a theater background.
So, man, you dropping so many gems, and we all over the place right now. But
yeah, I know we are.
Let's go back a little bit, because this relationship with Reggie, this isn't something that develops while you're a student at Howard, right?
No, I remember seeing Reggie. I remember walking to the School of Business, through the yard, like past Fine Arts. So Fine Arts is on my right, and I'm going to the School of Business. Ira Aldridge is on my right, and I remember seeing him on the steps of Howard University, and I would be like, "Who is he?" He just was he was a statue. He had an aura about him. And I was like, "Who is this man? Why does he have like Harvey shells in his head?" Not to even think 10 years down the road, this is a person who's literally going to be a part of the change of my life.
So you see you noticing this guy when you go into the School of B, but you don't even get tight with him until 10 years later.
10 years later is when Reggie and I met.
Okay, so when you graduate from Howard, what are you doing? What's your career?
I left and I moved back to Chicago, and I was working at my father's restaurant. He had a barbecue restaurant on the west side.
What's the name?
Coleman's Barbecue.
Okay, so now was that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so the plan was for you to take over the family business?
Until he fired me.
Okay. So what was your morale like when you're working for Pops?
I mean, he told me, watch the money.
Okay. So
you know what I mean, being from Chicago, that's what he said. He said, watch the money.
Okay.
And I was the face, right? So I'm the educated one. So I'm the one that's like at the cashier. Yeah, I can speak street and like education at the same time, if that makes sense. So I'm the face of the.
Okay, so you're doing that for how long?
I think I worked for my dad for maybe like 6 weeks, and I remember asking him for some gas money. I wasn't making a lot. I was like, "Can I have some gas money?" He gave me $5. He told me, "I'm firing you. You need to find a better job because I didn't send you to college to work in a restaurant." Kind of made me. I was a little bit perplexed because I'm like, "Wait, you just told me this is what you wanted me to do." So I remember that night I was online applying, and I applied to Tiffany & Company in Skokie, Illinois, Old Orchard Mall, and I got the job like a week later.
Okay, so now what's your what's going through your mind in terms of like career? Are you saying, man, I'm gonna work in fashion, I'm gonna be in costume design, or are you just saying, I'm living it day by day? Like
No, I said I was gonna do fashion. I wanted to do corporate fashion.
Okay. So corporate fashion. What is corporate fashion?
So corporate fashion is like, I wanted to work in operations in a major fashion company like Tiffany & Company.
Okay.
I actually had gotten a job to work at Bulgari, which is another jewelry company, to do like window like visual merchandising, which is like was my dream job. But I was scared to leave, which we can talk about in a minute. I was scared of that opportunity, so I took the safe route. It still was in fashion, but it was in the office at Tiffany & Company.
Why do you say that was why were you scared?
Because I was scared of failure.
So now you're at Tiffany. I mean, at what point do you what's like the major turning point before you get back to DC? Or is getting back to DC the major turning point?
I just remember one day going to Tiffany & Company, and I was like, I had the same feeling which we talked about prior of there's something else out there. So I remember I always played it safe up until costume design. So I remember saying, okay, well, if there's something else out there, let me go back to what I know, which is Howard, and I could create my own bubble, my own ecosystem, meaning I can work at Howard, I have my sorority sisters, I have my classmates, I can live a good life. So I left Tiffany & Company and went to work at the undergraduate admissions. And then that's when I got my job at the law school, which was kind of sweet because I didn't have a law degree. Reggie McGahee, who's the dean of the admissions there now, he took a chance on me. And I was there for 8 years. I got to travel, meet new people, learn a little bit more about administration. But I still was playing it safe because, again, I was, I had a 9 to 5. I had health insurance. Everything was cool up until, was it 2018 when we had our recession, right? Yeah. And the government started furloughing. And then that's when we started, how it eventually trickled down to Howard. And I studied abroad at Central St. Martin's. I left and studied abroad at Central St. Martin's. That's where I got my first certificate in fashion design and marketing. At that point, that's when I stopped playing it safe.
Were there ever any thoughts like, I don't know, like what's motivating you at that point?
I think what's motivating me at that point is I literally started to.
Or like, what is? Here's a better question. Because with me, I would literally be in bed, like just stuff with things. Certain thoughts would just eat at me.
Sure.
Are you having that type of experience? Like, were you thinking about stuff like, damn?
I would be seeing, no pun intended to anybody, but I would see like some of my classmates, or I would even see like, I don't know, sometimes I would watch like a music video and I would just, because remember at the time, I didn't even know costume design was a profession. So let me just throw it out there. That's something that I don't think we talk about. You mentioned about theater, but I remember watching like music videos or like MTV jams, and I'd be like, I could do that better. I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, whatever. I think a lot of it had to do with because I'm from Chicago, and I'm like, whatever, and because we have our, way about doing things. And I just thought to myself, all right, I got to do something, and I have to take a risk. And if I don't take this risk, then I will never, ever forgive myself. I remember when I turned 30, my mom said to me, if you don't know what you want to do by 30, you're going to be lost. And I never forgot that. And it was always in the back of my head that I wanted to do fashion. But then I started to change my narrative and say I wanted to be a costume designer. And I had no idea what that even meant. I just kept saying it. I want to be a costume designer. I want to be a costume designer. I actually wanted to go to Yale, funny enough.
How was it to want to be something and you don't really know anybody that's doing that? What is that like?
It was.
Because I gotta imagine. Nobody that you're telling.
That's a good question.
Who's cheering you on at that point? Who's,
Nobody. I sound crazy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You sound like if you told me that I'd be like, yeah, that's what's up. You know what I'm saying? But I don't have the resources to tell you where to go. I don't know anybody that can mentor you through that field. So that's interesting, man. So I just wanted to go back and fill in those gaps about where you were for that 8 years. So now, you at Howard as a employee. Were you assistant admissions director, you said?
Assistant, yes. Assistant, yep. Assistant.
Okay.
Assistant director of admissions.
So then you get laid off or whatever from Howard, and then you go get a certificate in fashion design, right?
Nope, I got laid off. So let me put it to you. This is how I tell people this is bigger than me. So I meet Reggie Ray at Starbucks, Magic Johnson Starbucks on Howard University's campus. We have a talk. Reggie said, okay, I'm going to take you under my wing. This was probably the spring before I was no longer an employee at Howard.
How did you meet him? Like, how did that meeting
I Facebooked him. See, this goes back to the pledging process. I literally Facebooked him. I sent him a message. He read it, and I got all in my feelings. I was, oh my God, he's ignoring me. And then I said, well, I'm at my wit's end. How am I going to get to what I want?
How did you know he was the man that you need to be contacted?
Well, remember, I told you, fast back up a bit, 10 years prior.
Yeah.
I saw him, and I was working on a small set with 2 Howard alumni. I was co-styling a photo shoot. And I remember this young lady, she's a stylist. She's actually a Sweetie stylist now, Sankara. She said, you should contact Reggie. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then one night, like you said, I'm having those thoughts, and I'm like, maybe I should contact him. So I contacted him, and he ignored me. At least I think he ignored me. And then I said, you know what? I contacted him 2 weeks later. I was like, what do I have to lose? And he responded to me. He said, meet me here at this time, and we're going to talk. Now, again, I'm kicking back into Howard University mode. School of Business, you got to be somewhere at some time, no matter what. You go into a program, you better be there at 7:08.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever, you know what I mean? And so I'm there soaking it all in. I still don't know what he's talking about. I'm still working at Howard, the law school. He says to me, okay, I'm going to take you under my wing. He knows I work at the law school, so he's curtailing my process so I can get as much information as possible during that time. But he also knows that I'm hungry for it. So that was the spring, right before I left Howard. I ended up going to Central St. Martin's. In between then, while I was at Central St. Martin's, I was reading The Alchemist. And when I got back to America, I knew my life had forever changed. I just didn't know how fast it was going to happen.
So when you got back, was there an opportunity waiting for you?
Yeah, I was let go from Howard University. So I had to figure it out. And it's funny we're having this conversation because I was talking to my former boss yesterday, who's a friend of mine now. And I said, I remember the day we had the conversation. And he said, Marci, today's your last day. And I was like, and I remember staring into space. And he asked me, was I okay? And I told him I was going to be just fine. Because at that point, I knew I could no longer play it safe. So then that's when everything just started to unfold for me. I got accepted to the University of Maryland in College Park. I met Ruth Carter. I met Paul Tazwell, who's a costume designer for Hamilton.
And so when you were at College Park, what's the major?
I'm majoring in costume design. So my master's.
So you're majoring in costume design, and now you're networking and you're meeting all of these people that are accomplished in doing what you want to do.
Yep. And so I started to change my narrative. At that point, I was like, I'm going to be a costume designer for Spike Lee. So I started saying I'm going to be a costume designer. I was like, I'm going to be Spike Lee's costume designer. I'm going to be Spike Lee's costume designer. I'm sure he probably would laugh if he heard me say that. But that's what happened. And I just kept saying things and saying things and saying things. And it just evolved and it happened.
Dope. Tell me about the first big break in terms of not necessarily meeting somebody, but where, okay, Marci's in charge of this. What's that?
That was when I was at University of Maryland. I did my first theater project at the Anacostia Playhouse. And they wanted me to design a show. And I was not scared, but I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I knew what I was doing, but it was like I didn't know that I was in charge, if that makes sense to your question.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me, I'm still figuring out how to be a better leader. I just, I was so wrapped up in trying to do design. Thankfully, when you do theater, you have small teams, but when you're doing film, like on She's Gotta Have It season 1, I think I might have had like 16 assistants. That's a lot of people to manage and then be creative. And I have a cast of 65 that I'm responsible for.
Damn, that's nuts.
Including the background, which could be 300 on one day.
Okay. That's a lot. I wouldn't know what to do. I'd be like, look, everybody Google 1980 and pick your favorite outfit, come back to work. It's not easy as that, huh?
No, it's not.
Okay, so now we can get back to when Reggie mentors you.
Mm-hmm.
You go to this event, you meet Spike Lee. Or is that how it happened? You meet Spike Lee. Spike Lee puts you in touch with who again?
Ruth Carter.
Ruth Carter. Does Ruth Carter, you develop a relationship with her? What happens next?
I reached out to Ruth. Hi, my name is Marci Rodgers. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a student at University of Maryland, College Park, majoring in an MFA in costume design. Mr. Lee told me to reach out to you. She said, awesome, send me your resume. Going back to School of Business, we have templates for resumes for days.
Mm-hmm.
I sent her my resume. I keep in touch, and she invites me down to Atlanta to assist her on a movie she was designing called Keeping Up with the Joneses. So I'm there. I literally go there on my own dime. I have no money. I'm in grad school, but I knew not to miss this opportunity.
Right.
So I went down to Atlanta for the week during my spring break. I assisted her, and
So this is not paid.
no, mind you, I'm like, and I say I'm grown because I had just bought a house in Maryland. I just, literally lost my salary job. Good job. No money. I fly. I'm there for a week. Whatever Ruth wants, she gets it in that way because I'm interning, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that dynamic. And 3 weeks later, she offers me the position to work on Chirac, which was the movie that Mr. Lee directed and shot in Chicago on the South Side.
Wow.
So that's how that happened.
So you back in Chicago working on Chirac?
So I'm home for the summer.
So now you
getting paid actually.
You at the crib. Pop said, "No, we ain't paying for that, Major." Now you back at the crib. Full circle moment for real. I mean, what was that like? Because there was a lot of controversy with that, with that show, because number one, Spike Lee not from Chicago. Number two,
sure,
labeling it Chirac kind of put a negative light on Chicago. But for you, what was it like to tell your dad or your family, your friends, hey, look, I'm working on this project with Spike Lee doing costume design? What was that like?
So I was the costume PA, and then I became the shopper of the show because Ruth obviously is not from Chicago either. So they would send me out to the South Side. I'd go to the West Side on the North Side and shop. And so she could put together the looks. But what was it like? I think it was probably one of my proudest moments as it relates to being, I say my hashtag, just a kid from Chicago, because when Ruth met my father, we were at St. Sabina, which is a church on the South Side. She met my family.
Right on 79th, yeah.
And she said, oh my God, your dad has to be in Chirac. He is the epitome of Chicago. And my dad lit up like a Christmas tree. And he was on set probably early. And he became...
He was on set, huh?
Yeah, my dad is actually in Chirac.
Oh, wow.
So because Ruth gave me the opportunity, out of support for the film, we went to this block party that Father Flager was having, and she met my dad, and she was like, he has to be in the movie. And it was nothing after that. Like, my dad was in Chirac. I was getting paid as a PA at the time, which is a production assistant. All because prior, I flew down to Atlanta for free and knew I wasn't getting paid for it.
Now you got some pretty dope relationships established with Spike Lee and what's the lady's name again?
Ruth Carter.
Yeah, and Ruth Carter. So now you're establishing some relationships. I mean, what's the next big project that you work on after that?
She's Gotta Have It.
She's Gotta Have It. Now, in this, when you're doing She's Gotta Have It, are you still production assistant?
No, I'm the costume designer.
Wow. So in the hierarchy of things, where's a costume designer?
The top.
The top. Man, that's a hell of a move. So, I mean, so when it comes to costume design, that means you picking out a wardrobe for everybody?
I designed that entire show.
Now, does costume design, does that entail, that's different from like the set and like cars and stuff like that, right?
That's considered production design, but yeah.
Okay.
Just so mine is strictly wardrobe. Whatever they put on their body.
So not hairstyle or nothing like that?
Yes. Okay. Yes. For costume designers, for theater.
Glasses?
All that. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, yes. Is that pressure or is it excitement?
Well, for She's Gotta Have It, of course that was pressure because I was fresh out of grad school. I think the most pressure I had was when I had to recreate the look for Mars. Black man. Because I know that was very special. That character is very special to Spike. Even Nola Darling is pretty special to Spike, but
huge. That's a huge. I mean, that's a lot of people's introduction to Spike, you know?
Right. So to be able to do that and to do it successfully.
So now you're working with Spike Lee. Is he the kind of dude to be like, no, this is all wrong? You know,
No,
no, okay.
he's not. I mean, if I had to take off the hat of where I'm from and like really look through the lens of New York City.
So what type of
Um,
research are you doing to get it right?
Literally riding down the streets of Brooklyn and looking at how people dress in certain areas of Brooklyn and Williamsburg and Crown Heights and Bed-Stuy, and Clinton Hill and Fort Greene for that matter. Like I'm literally.
Are you taking pictures?
Some people I'll take pictures that like they like move me, but other times I'm pretty good with photogenic. Like I can see something, I'm like photographic. I'm like, okay, I like
Because
that.
this is pretty significant because especially with Spike Lee, I feel like he kind of prides himself in making movies that are authentic to our culture. So for you to have that type of responsibility is huge. Because one thing I hate is when I watch a movie and then they slang is just like you like what people don't even talk like
Yeah,
you
I
know what I'm saying?
refuse. I refuse. It would be over my dead little body for somebody from New York to say we don't dress like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, absolutely not. That was not happening.
Mm.
And thankfully, the New Yorkers were like, you did that. I remember Fat Joe's in season 1 and 2. She's Gotta Have It. I remember right before one day we were on set and he rapped and he said, "Yo, Mars." I was like, "Hey, whatever." He's like, "You taking over New York," and I just thought I was like, "Wow, Fat Joe just told me I'm taking over New York. I'm not even from New York. I'm from Chicago." He's like, "I know exactly where you're from. Keep doing it." And Fat Joe is a part of New York culture too,
Oh, big time.
and I'm not making this up. Or even for Wu-Tang Clan, American Saga, like to go back into the 90s and try to make those characters look like.
Let's talk. Let's go into that because Wu Tang, we close in age, so we know the significant. We know for like a good period of time, Wu Tang was like a big deal. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Whether it was, I mean, it was, and they represented not just rap, but they was like a whole movement because they were big. They had the fashion, even their style of rap. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And how they rapped and how they talked and how they walked and their fashion. And then Wu Tang is
Mm-hmm.
like 12 members on top of that. So
Mm-hmm.
what was that like trying to tap into that and working on that project?
That was another dream come true. I mean, when I met with RZA and the other showrunner, I don't really go into projects starstruck. It goes back to what I said earlier. Like I try to have as much information as possible, so I'm confident enough to explain my vision. And RZA, they offered me the position or the opportunity to design, and I just remember diving into all those old videos from like the box. I'm sure you remember the box when you had to like
Oh
use
yeah,
your antenna so you can get some of the half fuzzy.
man.
um, I remember Yo MTV Raps, the basement. And I'm like going through all these photos and I'm literally reliving all of this. I'm reliving all of this. And RZA did tell me certain things at the time that where they would shot. I had the opportunity to work with uh, Method Man. He told me what he specifically wore at the time. He wore
You working
Walker
with
wear.
you working with folks that in their prime, they were like, Method at one point in time, Method Man was considered like, I guess what people might consider like a Kendrick Lamar to be like he was on top of the hip hop world.
Yeah,
Like what is it like? You're not necessarily starstruck, but what is
you,
it
you
what is
just
it
gotta know
what is it
deference.
like to have like to be like these are my colleagues? You know what I mean? Like
I
do you
don't
have do
think it
you
really
pinch
hit me.
yourself? Like what is
No, sometimes, I will admit sometimes because I actually wardrobe style Spike sometimes. I would say sometimes when I'm going back to him, sometimes when I'm dressed in Spike, sometimes I think, wow, that's Mookie, or like, you know, that's and then I click right back out of it. And then I say, good job. You sacrificed a lot to get here. When I met RZA the first time, RZA just was dropping. You think I drop gems. RZA was dropping gems. And I had just read his book, Tao Wu, sorry. And I'm just like, oh my God, RZA, please don't stop talking. Like, you're just speaking life. Like, he just speaks life to people, speaks life into people. When I met Method Man, he wanted me to change something on set. So I came to set, and typically people think I'm younger than what I am. So when I walked to set and I introduced myself, he was like, well, this is what I want for this particular character. And I was like, all right, well, I have this option, this option, this option. He was like, oh, you came prepared, you know. And like, at that point, my crew is around, and my crew is like, we're not in trouble. You like reinforcing confidence. And so he said to me, oh, you need to get in contact with like Dapper Dan or somebody. And I was like, Dapper Dan is like my uncle. And he said, which I met Dapper Dan in Harlem randomly one day, but we became close. And he was like, oh, well, you got this. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. I'm going to let you do your job. And I'm just sitting. Now, at that point, I'm ready to pinch myself, because I'm like, he just told me I got this, you know, and I was like a teenager when they were in their prime. So when telling their story, I wanted everything to be authentic as possible to Staten Island and then New York, because there's a difference. Harlem dresses different from Brooklyn, which dresses different from Staten Island.
When you're just doing all this styling and stuff, you have to come up with the budget too? Or do they give you a budget?
Both. But typically you come up with a budget. Mm-hmm. We break it down.
What are the budgets looking like for something like this? Like, what's the math or the equation that you have to use?
Well, you have to keep in mind, for an episodic, that could be 10 episodes with a core group of people, which is probably 10. And then you have people who are considered day players, which means they're only on set certain days or a day. And then you have the background. If it's period, that's a little bit different, in a sense where you have to figure out, like, I had to literally find clothes from the 90s or something as close as possible. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I was able to find, if we're speaking in regards to Tang, I was able to find as much 90s that's clothing that's out there as I could. So it could range from maybe $50,000 an episode.
Just in wardrobe?
Yeah. Because it depends on what the scene calls for. I mean, that's an arbitrary number.
Damn.
But
so do you get pushback on that?
For the
like,
budget?
Do you have to justify?
Sometimes.
Wow. I mean, is it?
And that's when my business head comes in. And that's what I'm saying, as far as like my dad, I think he saw something before I did. Because then I turned into a salesman, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, well, this is why we need this, and because of this. Besides, you just added 10 other people to the scene, and now this money has to cover all that. And they'll say, okay, yeah.
So what happens with those clothes when it's all said and done?
They're owned by the studio.
So are they used again? I mean,
yes, they're used again. I mean, if you see She's Gotta Have It, season 1 and 2, there are some flashbacks.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. BLACKKKLANSMAN, was that the biggest project you worked on?
To date, yes.
Okay, so tell me about what that experience like, because that's a film. And I'm thinking, you know, Chirac was a film too, but I know it didn't. They filmed that fairly quick, right? It wasn't like a.
Chirac was filmed over summertime. It was like 6 weeks. Maybe 6
so
8 weeks.
BLACKKKLANSMAN, how long was that?
About the same. 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now you're working, and your title for BLACKKKLANSMAN, are you what are you doing there?
I am the costume designer. I costume designed that entire show.
Damn. Swag. I costume designed that entire show. That was all me.
Yeah.
Now you're working with Denzel's son, right?
John David Washington.
Yeah, you're working with him. You're working with Spike Lee again. And this movie is a big deal. I mean, you know by the title that this is about to be a big project. So what is it like coming from Howard and like designing stuff for like Klansmen, first of all?
So it's funny you mentioned it because when I did my research, I went back to Howard. I went to Moreland Spring Arm.
Really? Damn.
Before I even like my office had opened up in Brooklyn, and I said, okay, I'm designing this show. It's based in the 70s. It's only so much research you have out there. I know exactly where I could go to get vintage or archive Essence, Ebony magazines. I got to go back to Howard.
Wow.
And I went to Moreland Spring Arm. And they thank you. I would like to say publicly, thank you, Moreland Spring Arm, because they opened up their vault and they would bring me things or, you know, books that I can look at. I remember I found a letter that Kwame Ture, which is Stokely Carmichael, because he's in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I found I found this like file of like all of his like pictures from back in the day and letters he wrote. It was amazing.
Wow. Stokely Carmichael's in a movie?
Yes. Stokely Carmichael is Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture is Stokely Carmichael.
Howard grad, right?
Yes.
Wow. Dope. So many parallels.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, so what's next for Marci? Like what type of things you got going on that what's going through that head of yours that you want to accomplish?
So what's next for me? First and foremost, I haven't said it, but I hope everyone's family is safe and sound and well. If not, prayers go out to you. Right before this all happened, I was designing a movie with Steven Soderbergh, who is the director of, one of his movies is Ocean's 11, which is sex, lies, and videotapes. Like Steven Soderbergh took another chance on me. So we were directing he's directing a 50s movie and I'm designing it. So to me, that was actually going to be like my or when we come back, that's going to put me in a whole nother light, I feel. It's starring Don Cheadle, George Clooney.
Wow. Wait, you're doing, I know I keep asking you what you're doing. I know I keep saying that, but I just want to emphasize, you know, so what are you going to be doing on that show?
I'm the costume designer.
And so you're making the final decision on what everybody's wearing?
Yes.
Come on, Marci, you being humble right now. You need to smile. Do you smile? Come on, man. Smile.
Sometimes.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I mean, just considering your walk, you know what I mean? So many people, like, it's such a blessing to be able to be like, from a child to be like, I want to do this, and you go and do it. But for so many other people, we don't know what we want to do until we 30. You know what I'm saying? Or we kind of know what we want to do, but we don't know how to make money and support ourselves. And it's kind of like, you know, the earlier that you can get started on that, you know, the better. But at the same time, it's never too late. You know what I mean?
No.
You know, it's never too late. And I think that's kind of what I'm drawing from you. You know, that, you know, it's never too late. You know, you always had the talent. You know, you just kind of needed that push, and that push was really transitioning from, you know, working at Howard. You know, you was
For sure.
Get it, I got to do it, and you was forced to take a chance on yourself. So
yeah,
that's dope. So that's Ocean's 11, you said?
No, so it's the director from Ocean's 11. The movie that we're working together on is called Kill Switch, and I'm also designing the first Black opera in Toronto.
So that budget probably stupid. That budget is probably stupid for them clothes. Yeah, man, that's what's up.
It's a 50s movie, so I've thankfully been able to design every era except the 30s.
Damn, 50s movie.
Yeah, I have a movie coming out sometime soon. It's called Passing that I costume designed with starring Tessa Thompson. That was shot in black and white in New York. It's a 20s movie.
Man. Marci, I'm so proud of you, man.
Oh, thank you.
For real. I mean, you legit. You are legit. Like, just hearing the stuff that you did, like, that's something that, I mean, how many, like, every Black person everybody needs to watch this.
Oh,
because I
thank you.
think that, it's so many things you could pull from it, because it's so many ways to get to a goal. Even when I'm talking to you, you laid back, you know, you don't got to be the center of attention
I've never. I was not like that in Howard, and when I get to my goal, when I get on the stage and I accept my first Academy Award, I probably would cry like a baby.
So do you like
But
morph into a different person on stage? You like transform? Like
no, I get very emotional. I'm actually shy, whether or not you know it. But which is why for me, I knew I was no actor. I'm no actress. Like I have no problems with throwing clothes on people.
Mm.
Um, and so my next thing is I actually wrote a children's book about my life, my journey, and how I never let go of art, which my art form is costume design. So I'm
Hmm.
releasing that on my birthday, which is in August. So you can check that out on my social media.
So can you please tag Howard alumni in that so I can
Of
repost it?
course, I'm gonna send you a book and all
Okay.
that jazz.
Because I got a
Um.
daughter. I got a daughter. She's 3.
Oh wow!
And I got a
Congrats.
son. He's 6. And my wife was a theater arts major.
Oh
So,
wow.
so yeah, I've been in business for 8 years now, entrepreneur.
Mhm.
But, one thing I want to teach my kids is to just be fearless no matter what. Even if we bump heads, I want to teach my kids to be fearless, man. And that's really why I'm putting this podcast together, because there's so many different success stories that come out of Howard, and a lot of attention goes to people that are in front of the camera, and rightfully so. But it's so many other stories that need to be told, and
I agree.
that's why I made this. I mean, the quarantine kind of put me in a position. I'm like, okay, I run the Howard Alumni Instagram. How can I do something meaningful with it? So people like you inspiring. I mean, this is crazy that I'm talking to you, because now I know I'm gonna look back at this, and my kids gonna be they're gonna be 30, and you're gonna be like, the girl, the lady who
Oh,
who who, who did Wakanda 15, she was on my show. And that's gonna be you.
right.
Like this is crazy. I had Lance Gross on here,
Yeah, I
Eric
remember
Eric
Lance.
Roberson. Like
Hmm.
I'm talking to all of y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like
AJ.
AJ, I had on yesterday. That
Yeah.
was yesterday. Like I'm talking to all of y'all. And it's certain things that everybody is saying. Like I never gave up, or
Right.
I started late, but you know, I fell on my face, and lo and behold, this was the opportunity that fell in my lap.
Right.
I was forced to do it. So kudos to you, man. I mean, what does Marci right now say to the Marci coming in the house, or somebody that
Ooh.
wants to be in the shoes of a Marci, or whatever? I mean, because you got AKA Crampton,
Yeah.
you got experiences that are timeless. Like when I
So
tell people, go ahead.
my nephew was accepted to Howard, and he's a transfer student. And I know, or when he sees this, he's probably gonna be cheesing or maybe get emotional. But I've been really hard on him, and I know he hates it. But one thing Reggie told me right before he died, Reggie Ray, my mentor, was you better be ready. And
Mm.
as much as I wanted to not accept that, I knew exactly what he was saying. So to my nephew, to the younger Marci, or even someone coming into Howard University, I think to embrace the time and embrace all the experiences you have, because you can only, those will fuel you throughout your life. And don't be afraid of constructive criticism. I think that's going to be cathartic for a lot of people. And just know that everybody, whoever pours into you in whatever way, love them for that, because they see something in you. And they only want you to be great.
Mm.
And because this world is not getting easier, and you have to figure out as an entrepreneur. I mean, for the most part, I am an entrepreneur. I'm a creative, but I'm an entrepreneur. Like, you have to figure out how to navigate through this world, and do it seamlessly. And I think that's one thing Howard teaches you. Like, you do learn how to navigate through the world
Mm.
quickly.
Bars from Marci. So legacy. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
That's how I typically end the podcast. Legacy. So when it's all said and done, what are we saying about Marci? Or at least what would you like people to say?
It's funny you asked me that question because I just said that out loud to someone. What is your legacy? And I said I need to figure it out. I think my legacy is somebody who never stopped dreaming. Who never stopped dreaming before I became a costume designer. I will never stop dreaming now that I am a costume designer. For somebody who dedicated their lives to tell the story of fashion, and what I mean by that is through character, and through era, as it relates to screen, meaning TV, theater, opera. Somebody who held Chicago, even, through its pain, dear to his heart, her heart. I'm thinking about Kanye when I say that. People, that's a whole other conversation. But and just somebody who just never gave up.
Thanks, Marci. Marci so shy you thought she was bashful. But yeah, Marci, thank you, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm so happy you took time out. A lot of times, when it's hard to research and ask questions sometimes about these professions that I don't know about, or when it's people that I don't even know from Adam, so, I think, I want to thank you for being open and just, being, adding value to what I'm trying to do.
Of course.
And right now, this is the portion of the show where we do a little bit of trivia. So I hope you got some Howard history under your belt. We do a little trivia, and then we're gonna do a little rapid fire. Let me see if I can find something here. Let's see what we got. All right, so this is rapid fire. We'll start with that. So now with rapid fire, you just got to give an answer. You cannot explain yourself on any of these. Okay. All right. Number one, we'll start with something easy. Timberlands or Jordans?
Jordans.
Or when I say a word, you just gotta say the first thing that comes to mind. Howard China or China Wonder?
China Wonder.
Michigan Avenue or U Street?
U Street.
LeBron or Jordan?
Jordan.
Broadway or movies?
Broadway.
Okay, one of these you gotta you gotta start, you gotta bench, or cut. Broadway, movies, sitcoms.
Broadway.
Which one you gonna start? You gonna start Broadway, which one you gonna bench?
Sitcoms.
And you gonna cut movies?
No, wait, I'm sorry. I want to bench movies, cut sitcoms.
Okay. Favorite time period?
Oh. The 20s.
Who you know or what you know?
I know who I am and I know what I want.
Spike Lee.
Do the right thing.
Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Alpha Chapter.
Cool. Good stuff. Now we on to some Jeopardy. You ready?
Oh, God. Sure.
All right. Easy stuff. What dorm did you stay in at Howard? Or did you stay at
stayed in Slow Hall. I'm so sad they tore it down. It hurt my heart. But yes, Slow.
Okay. What is the address of Slow Hall?
Dear God. I know it's on 3rd Street. There is no address. Slow Hall's gone. It was on 3rd Street. That's all I know.
That's all she knows.
Northwest.
What's the zip code? What's the zip code of Howard?
20059.
Good.
We had to say it in our chant now when we pledge, so we never forget that.
Who is the president of Howard?
Wayne Frederick.
Yeah. What year was Howard founded?
1867.
Finish the sentence. Reared against the eastern sky.
Oh, you got me. I don't even remember. That.
Proudly there on Hilltop High. Finish this sentence. I'm so glad
that I went to Howard U and not a white school.
Yeah. Good job. Good job. So that's it. So
I got I missed one.
So Marci, is there a way that people can follow you, or if they want to get in touch with you, or
Sure.
network with you? I mean, how can people do that?
Well, I am on social media, particularly on Instagram, because my parents are on Facebook now. So I can be reached at Marci Rodgers with the D _1_, and you can find me. You can DM me. You can also visit my website where you can get in contact with me and email if you have any questions. I have no problems with mentoring or giving as much advice as I can, but please be receptive and be open to how I give advice and just my experience, which hopefully will help you throughout your career.
Bars. Marci, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.